Sandra go? Yeah, where's Sandra?
We're going to give him some time to get set up.
Yeah. But, yeah.
Should we all stand up there?
We can. Yes.
You want to? Okay.
At least,
Okay.
Eileen, you want to come up? Feel free. Molly.
Put my costume on. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to waste the opportunity, right?
I brought this coat for a reason.
Okay, thanks. We're live on Facebook.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, okay. Don't say that stupid bitch.
That's right. You're like, wait, what did I just do?
Oh, don't say anything silly.
Thanks, guys. Good to see you. Thanks for coming. Yeah. Think you're busy before February election day? Yeah.
Just want to.
It's a little busy. Yeah.
Everyone ready? We're good? All right.
All right, let's go.
All right, you all ready? All right.
Yeah, I'm not Jay, but that's okay.
He'll be.
He'll be here.
He'll be here.
He'll be here. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Shantae Nelson. I am with Wisconsin Voices. I am the program manager there. And I would first like to thank all of the members of the Our Democracy 2020 Coalition who are here, as well as those of you who are in support of what we are doing today, as well as the media for helping us to cover this story. We are here today in response to the blatant attempt to force Wisconsin's elections administrator, Mike Haas, and Wisconsin's ethics administrator, Brian Bell, to resign. Both are facing a public attack from Speaker Robin Vos and Majority Leader Scott Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald has even announced that there will be a vote on January 23rd with the intent to force them out of their jobs. However, there is no plan to hold a public hearing, and this public hearing will give them the ability to defend their good names. If there is no public hearing, which is really a process or a component of Wisconsin's legislative process, when will the public have a chance to weigh in on this matter? So we are here today, those of us who are part of the Our Democracy 2020 Coalition, and today you will hear from some of those who are a part of the coalition. You will hear from a representative, Erin Grunzy, the executive director of the League of Women Voters in Wisconsin, Jay Heck, the executive director of Common Cause of Wisconsin, as well as Chris Ott, the executive director of the ACLU in Wisconsin. And we are asking, as members of the Our Democracy 2020 Coalition, for a public hearing prior to any Senate vote.
Thanks, Shantae.
I'm Erin Grunzy, the Executive Director of the League of Women Voters of Wisconsin. The League of Women Voters has advocated for good and open government for decades, and is why we're here today to stand up for good and open governance. We are deeply troubled to see Senate Majority Leader Scott Fitzgerald and Assembly Speaker Robin Vos call for the resignation of Elections Commissioner Administrator Michael Haas and the Ethics Commission Administrator Brian Bell. Neither Fitzgerald nor Vos has offered any evidence of wrongdoing on the administrator's part. It's just plain wrong to try to push them out of a job for no good reason. And it is just plain wrong to deny them a public hearing where they could have an opportunity to defend their good names. We at the League of Women Voters of Wisconsin believe that Mr. Haas and Mr. Bell have served in their positions honorably and without bias. Mike Haas and Brian Bell are dedicated public servants who have the unanimous support of their bipartisan commission boards. It is especially concerning to us that elected officials are attacking them without cause in an election year when the public needs confidence in our democratic processes and in the integrity of our elections. These attacks undermine that confidence. We have worked most closely with Administrator Mike Haas, and we know that he has the support of county and municipal clerks from across the state, as well as the national respect from his peers in election administration. In fact, he was just nominated to serve as a secretary of the National Association of State Election Directors for the 2018-19 term. We do not understand why Speaker Voss and Majority Leader Fitzgerald are calling for his and for Brian Bell's resignation. And we cannot understand why Majority Leader Fitzgerald insists on voting them out of office next Tuesday without even having the decency to hold a public hearing on this matter first. This is not good governance.
Apologize for being late. I'm sure I'll be late for my own funeral. I'm Jay Heck. I'm the State Director of Common Cause in Wisconsin and have been for the last 22 years. I've seen the elections and ethics boards in 3 different iterations now. The old State Ethics Board and the State Elections Board, which were independent of each other. Of course, the Government Accountability Board, the nonpartisan entity created with almost unanimous vote in the legislature in 2007, and which lasted from 2008 until its dissolution and destruction in 2015, and now the current Wisconsin Ethics and Wisconsin Elections Commissions. I have to tell you that in all of my years in this position, this is the most curious and in many ways the most frightening development that I've come across. And it is really because of the secrecy in which this entire episode is being shrouded. It's no secret that Common Cause vigorously opposed the dissolving of the Nonpartisan Government Accountability Board, and we fiercely opposed the creation of partisan commissions to oversee elections, ethics, and campaign finance reform in the state. And in fact, former State Representative Dean Knudsen, one of the architects of the destruction of the Government Accountability Board, we thought was wrong on almost every count in his accusations about the GAB. But it's surprising now that Mr. Knudsen, now a member of the Wisconsin Elections Commission, has voiced strong support for Administrator Michael Haas, as have all the members of both the bipartisan elections and ethics commissions. This includes people like Judge Mac Davis, who was a very partisan Republican state senator and with whom our organization rarely agreed on anything. But he has said that Brian Bell ought to remain in this position. And the thing that is most troubling about this is that Senator Fitzgerald refuses to even say why he thinks these two should be removed, even after the partisan appointments that he has made to these commissions have voiced confidence in both Mr. Bell and in Mr. Haas. And so it leaves certainly us no other conclusion other than he is trying to sweep the last vestige of any nonpartisanship and any fairness and any impartiality from the jurisdictions that now oversee the elections and ethics in the state of Wisconsin, just in time for the 2018 election season. Otherwise, there would be an explanation. We do know from the Department of Justice report that several names of state senators were mentioned in passing or in reference to communications that occurred. Leah Vukmir obviously stands out. Howard Markline's name has come up. I don't know if that would be the reason those senators would oppose the continuation of Mr. Bell and Mr. Haas in office, but they owe us an explanation, and Senator Fitzgerald owes us an explanation as to why they seek the removal of Haas and Bell. And so the vote next Tuesday, if it occurs on confirmation, can be interpreted in only 2 ways. It can be interpreted as the arrogance of power shrouded in secrecy and a blatant attempt to make the elections and ethics commissions even more partisan and transform even further Wisconsin into a one-party state, or it can be interpreted as confidence in the last vestige of impartiality and fairness in the Wisconsin Ethics and Elections Commissions. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Chris Ott. I'm the Executive Director of the ACLU of Wisconsin. The ACLU today has more than 20,000 members all across Wisconsin, in every county and in every legislative district, and so on their behalf, I really appreciate the chance to say a few words today. With deep political divides in our country and our state, I think that we should really sit up and pay attention when someone actually gets strong bipartisan support. And Wisconsin right now has the good fortune of having two widely respected public servants who have exactly this kind of support. Michael Haas, the administrator of the Wisconsin Elections Commission, and his counterpart, Brian Bell, at the Ethics Commission, both have the clear support of the bipartisan commissions that they report to. And so this threat by legislative leaders to force them out really looks like a political move to replace public servants who've acted as even-handed referees, and that's why the ACLU of Wisconsin opposes this. As just one example of the important role that having good, fair officials in this in these positions, how important that can be, just think back to last July. That's when a new White House voting commission demanded information about every voter in every state in the country, and it sparked a really bipartisan backlash. As the Republican Secretary of State from Mississippi put it, they can go jump in the Gulf of Mexico. Mississippi residents should celebrate Independence Day and our state's right to protect the privacy of our citizens by conducting our own electoral process. Now, Mike Haas at the Wisconsin Elections Commission joined that opposition, making it clear that Wisconsin would not turn over any more voter data than the law required. And this kind of good judgment from all across the country actually forced the Trump administration to back down and to scrap the commission that made this outrageous demand in the first place. Wisconsin needs even-handed public servants like this, and we should let these bipartisan agencies do their jobs without interference from politicians. We have important statewide elections coming up in Wisconsin in just a few weeks, and then, of course, again later this year. And right now, the U.S. Supreme Court is also considering a very important case about partisan gerrymandering that we and others hope will require our state to draw new and fair maps for the legislative districts that don't so clearly favor one party over another the way that they do now. That makes now those two things together make now a really suspicious time to try to turn our state's Ethics Commission and Elections Commission inside out, and we can't let partisan politicians try to fire the independent watchdogs who help and protect Wisconsin's voters. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron and Jay and Chris. And so today we are here, and we feel like, well, it is my personal opinion, I should say, that elections are run for the good of everyone involved. So this is not an expression of partisan politics. This is the truest expression of democracy. Voting is the fundamental component of American democracy. And unless democracy is able to include eligible voters who can participate in not just the voting process, but also the electoral and legislative process, we don't have a democracy that works. So this is our way of participating. Why? Because we've been denied a public hearing. So as a coalition, the Our Democracy 2020 coalition, here in Wisconsin, we are asking for a public hearing for both Mike Haas as well as Brian Bell. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Have you spoken to any of the senators, and do you get the sense that this confirmation vote is a done deal, as Senator Fitzgerald has sort of described it, or do you get the sense that the outcome might be different than what's been advertised?
Yeah.
And I'll go after you. Matt Rothschild from the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign. I've been in touch with staff members from for 3 or 4 of the Republican senators, and it is my belief that it is not a done deal, and that many of these Republican senators, several of the Republican senators, have misgivings about this vote. It's my understanding that the majority leader may not even have consulted with the full caucus to get a head count. And I imagine that the more Republican senators look at this issue, the more trouble they're going to have in voting to remove these administrators. There was an article that came out in the Journal-Sentinel recently about Brian Bell, for instance, that reminded everybody that this guy essentially was the star in the movie The Foot Locker, the Hurt Locker, whatever that movie was, the guy who removed roadside bombs, because Brian Bell has been in the reserves now for 18 years. He's a captain in the reserves. He served in Afghanistan and Iraq. Do Republican state senators really want to fire this guy without a public hearing and without due cause, a guy who has served his country nobly and courageously? These Republican senators say they value the service of our men and women in the armed services. This is not a way to value that. And Michael Haas has been nominated by his peers across the country for his tremendous public service. Are they really going to look at that and say that doesn't matter either? And then are they going to look at the election that just happened yesterday, where there was a surprise win by a Democrat in the 10th district who talked about Wisconsin nice, talked about getting back to Wisconsin nice? Is a summary firing of two decent, honorable public servants an expression of Wisconsin nice? If the Republicans are going to run against Wisconsin nice, they're going to lose.
Which offices did you talk to that make you think that there may be some Republicans who aren't going to go on?
I have talked to staffers at Senator Coles' office, Senator Petrowski's office, Senator Roth's office, and one other senator.
We've also heard Luther Olson.
Luther
has
Olson's
real
office.
grave doubts about this.
Yeah, I have
as well.
spoken to Luther Olson's staff as well.
Do any of this would be a question maybe for the ACLU or for, I guess, any of the groups that have some legal expertise. There's a controversy about whether the Senate actually has the legal authority to force the administrators out of their positions. The Elections Commission Chairman Mark Thompson has said he doesn't think the Senate has the authority to do that. Anybody have any opinions or any thoughts on kind of what the law says in that regard?
Our understanding is that they don't have the authority to do that, that they created these commissions and gave them the authority to hire and fire. And since the Senate hasn't acted on this, on their appointments or their hirings, for close to 2 years now, if they wanted to do that, they missed their chance.
Any other questions?
Well, are you considering legal action on that front? Because obviously the Republican senators think that they could force them out, that rejecting their confirmation would remove them from office. I know Mark Thompson from the Elections Commission has disagreed and holds the same position you do on the legality of that. But are you anticipating getting involved in courts over this issue?
Well, let's not speculate on that just yet. I mean, we really hope that they will do the right thing and not hold this vote in the first place next week. It's just the wrong thing to do.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll certainly reserve the right to go to court after the confirmation vote, if there is one, next week.
Any additional questions? Thank you all.
It's all been heard.
Great job. Jay, flying in and just taking your words out. That was great.